Welcome everybody to this evening. It's a special evening of sharing about Val Hammond's life, honoring her, the blessing of her life that she gave us and that we all shared in some way. So let's start with bringing our energy in to our hearts, into our spines, getting more centered in our awareness, trying to let go of all the other details of our day and of our life, to focus in here together as friends and family and loved ones of Val Hammond. All on the masters and the gurus, our Divine Mother and Heavenly Father, to bless our evening, our sharing, and our memories of Val and all that she gave us. Lift us from darkness, delusion, and uncertainty into the clear light of thy presence. Ignite our earthliness with the flame of infinity. Inflame our hearts with thy love. Inflame our souls with thy joy. Oh, peace. Amen. Now I'll ask Surendra to share. Surendra, you need to unmute.
Good evening, everyone. This is a reading from our Astral Ascension. We are come together on an occasion of dual meaning, mixed with sadness and with joy. The sadness is ours for a time. The joy is hers, whose spirit is now risen. And the words of the psalmist in the 23rd Psalm are those of Val now, for she is in the bosom of the Lord and can truly say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely the goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Thank you, Surendra. It's beautiful. Now I have a song from our choir. This is a recording pre-COVID. A beautiful song called Life is a Dream. The words, the music by Swami Kriyananda. I will share my screen now.
Carries our burden.
Now we have a special treat for all of those of us who knew Val. We know how much dancing was so important to her and how she loved to share that. In many ways, we had the joy of watching her dance on many occasions here at Ananda Community and in our temple. So I have a recording from a dance she did here in the community one time. It was, I believe, a 4th of July celebration. I'm not sure exactly what year it was. If anybody knows, they can put it in the chat so that we can get the year. But just enjoy this. It's a very sweet treat.
Fairy tales come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. It's hard to be narrow-minded if you're young at heart. You can go to extremes with impossible schemes. You can laugh when your dreams fall apart at the seams, and life gets more exciting with each passing day. And love is either in your heart or on the way. Don't you know that it's worth every treasure on earth to a young at heart? For as rich as you are, it's much better by far to be young at heart. And if you should survive to 105, oh, you'll derive out of being alive. And here is the best part: you have a head start if you are among the very young at heart.
I just love that video of her dancing. So now we have another wonderful way of sharing about Val's life. Ellen Hammond, her daughter, is here with us this evening, and she prepared a presentation a while ago, I believe. She can tell us about it, and I'm just going to let her share her screen now and share all the things that she has, and she's going to narrate and tell us about it as we go along.
All right, hang on just a sec here. Let me know when you see it, Lorna.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, so about 10 years ago, I had a friend of mine who lived with me for about a year while he was dying of liver disease. And we were members of the Unity Church. And the Unity Church did the coolest thing, I thought, and I'm sure it's common, but it was the first time I'd experienced it. And it was a celebration of life while the person was still alive. And I thought that was so cool because Jimmy was getting to experience the celebration while he was still hanging around here, and people could interact with him and all that. And I thought, you know, why wait until someone has passed before you do that? So for Mom's 91st birthday 2 years ago, I put together a slideshow of her life. And I knew that a lot of people at Ananda House, or sorry, that's where she was at, in Ananda, they knew the Ananda part of her life and maybe the Living Enrichment Center part of life, or her life, and other pieces, like Diane Goodmanson has known her for 40 years and started as a yoga student. And so I just thought, you know, people would be interested in finding out sort of the rest of the story of Mom's life. So I just slightly adapted this from the presentation I gave 2 years ago. And so you'll see that Mom had 3 middle names, and I'll explain that in a second. And also her favorite color was green. So her father, who had 4 or 5 middle names for reasons I don't know, but it was common in Germany, was born in 1894 in northern Germany. And he wanted to be a forester. 7 generations before him had been foresters, but his father said, no, the economy sucks, you need to do something different. So he became an architect. And he also fought in World War I. And he was a machine gunner. He was a lieutenant and led machine gun group on the Russian front. But then he went to become an architect there at the bottom, and he was also a gifted artist, and he mostly loved colored chalks, pastels, and he loved wildlife, and they would visit us in the summers. And on the left is Großfati when we were camping in the Coast Range in the Tillamook Burn. And so from Mom, she got this amazing engineering mind and this ability to sketch and draw from Großfati. Großmutti, Mom's mother, was born in 1902. She was the daughter of Lutheran missionaries in India who were running a leper colony. And Großmutti is on the right there. And when she was about 6 years old, her parents sent her and her siblings to Germany to be fostered. And that's why Mom has 3 middle names, because she had also a foster grandmother. And this is Großmutti on the left. Großmutti then, she was studying in a sort of craft college, seamstressing and all these embroidery and all these kinds of things. And Mom picked up this amazing talent for designing and sewing her own costumes for dancing and stuff, I think from Großmutti. And so Großmutti and Großfati met. Whoops, I have to jump back here. This is where Großmutti was raised. This was the pastor's house in the town of Marienborn, which after the Berlin Wall went up was just on the east side of the wall. So the Berlin Wall separated Mom and much of her family. So anyways, so Großmutti and Großfati got married in 1927. They met because Großfati came to do a farm restoration, do the design for it. They met. So they got married at a little country church there in northern Germany. And in 1928, Mom was born in that same house where Großmutti grew up, there in Marienborn, right next to the church. So she was born there, and they lived there for several years and moved back and forth around northern Germany. And it was interesting when I was looking through Mom's photos, there are so many of the German Christmas trees. And as you may or may not know, they use live candles on their trees. And to this day, I still do that. We did that as a kid. On Christmas Eve, we would light the candles and sing German Christmas songs. And so I still do that. So anyway, yes. So the most impactful time of Mom's life in a positive way is before the war, when they moved to Poitzen, a community of about 5 farms in northern Germany in the country. They moved there because my German grandfather was an architect for the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, and was helping to design the airport at Fussberg, which was later used for the Berlin airlift. And this is the house that Mom lived in. And it hasn't changed a whole lot from when she was actually there in around 1932. They lived there for several years. And in front, you can see the trunks of birch trees. And Mom has had a lifelong love of birch trees. This area where they lived in Poitzen was also in a unique landscape in Europe, and it was the heather. The soils are sandy, the forest got deforested about 1,000 years ago by livestock, and so it opened up into these areas where heather grows, like in Scotland. And it's a specially protected area, and if you've been in Mom's room and looked on her wall or on her door, she's got postcards from the Lüneburger Heide. And this is a sketch that my grandfather did. And that area in Lüneburg was just, I think, the highlight of her life. So they were still living there when she was 7, and her sister Linda was born, and that's her only sibling. When she was around 10, they moved to Hanover. Hanover was a large industrial city in northern Germany. This is what it looked like before the war. And Mom enrolled in a dance school, and that is what she wanted to become, was a professional dancer and a teacher. She wanted to teach from early on. So gymnastics, dance, you just couldn't stop her. Then, of course, the war came, and this is a picture actually from her Hitler Youth ID, and she was with a dance school in Hanover, which then got evacuated to Czechoslovakia, and Mom's parents and her sister moved to Berlin. And they were among the last people to escape from Berlin before the wall went up. Their house was bombed out. Hanover was bombed in 1943, and on the left was their house. But of course, Großvater was an architect, and he designed this little apartment house you see on the right. It's standing all by itself in the middle of rubble. But my grandparents and my mom, oh, dang, my phone's ringing. Sorry, ignore that. They moved in there, and that's where they lived. And it's still standing, and there it is on the left. It's all built up now, and behind it you can see the top of a birch tree. So at the age of 20, Mom was, hang on, I'm gonna move away from my phone. Now they hung up. Okay, so Mom was certified as a gymnastics and dance instructor by the time she was 20 in Germany. And I believe this is her in costume for dancing the Nutcracker and the flute dance in the magic flute. And she designed and made all her own costumes and choreographed her dances. And here at the age of 22, she was doing recitals. She's the soloist here, and this would be with her students doing a recital. So a year later, her uncle sponsored her to come to the United States. So she came to California and got a job teaching PE in Stockton and several places in the Bay Area. And she picked up this great talent for sketching from my grandfather. And she would often decorate announcements, brochures, everything with her own little sketches. So here, this is track and field. You see someone running and they're turning into the road runner at the far right. So she did pick up some of the contemporary American culture there. Then she taught at Dominican College. She was on the faculty of Dominican College, a private Catholic college just north of San Francisco. And here's an invitation, and again, one of her delightful sketches. She also performed in recitals at Dominican College. Here's a program with her dancing to a string quartet or a quartet. The highlight of her dance career was when she danced with members of the San Francisco Symphony. She went back to visit my grandparents. This is that house that my grandfather designed there in Hanover. So here she is in probably the early 1950s, going back for a visit. And then she got married in 1956. And I believe this is a photo of her in student housing at Stanford, again at Christmas. She got a degree in PE then from San Jose College, so she could actually have a real teaching credential, because they just let her teach with her credentials from Germany. So my sister and I were born in 1961 and 1962, and my grandparents came over to help Mom with us. That's my sister on the left and me on the right. And again, the German Christmas tree. So when I was about 4, they moved to a house, the Hamilton Street house, where Mom ended up living like for, I think, 40, 50 years. And she loved this house. It was a little craftsman house in Southwest Portland, and she loved the rhododendrons and refused to prune them. The house was built in the late 20s, and I believe the rhododendrons were planted then. So she would refuse to let anyone trim these rhododendrons. And in the far back is, you can see a bit of a tree. That was a birch tree. And she said that was one of the reasons she wanted to live in this house, was because of the birch tree. We were raised German. My dad spoke German. They had gone to Germany on, he had a Fulbright scholarship, and they lived in southern Germany. So my mom taught us to read and write in German. We got little dirndls we're wearing there. She had us do embroidery and all kinds of these crafts that she picked up from her mother. And she taught me and my sister to play piano and play recorder. And we grew up singing all these German folk songs. So German was actually my sister's and my first language growing up in Beaverton. She was very involved in folk dancing throughout the Portland area. Here's my sister and me and probably a Cinco de Mayo, some kind of event. No, it's in March. But anyway, here we are dancing at the Y in Portland. And Mom sewed our skirts, and I'm sure she choreographed this whole thing. She was just extremely active with different groups and ethnic dancing. She was an expert in ethnic folk dancing, in ballet, toe. She did toe dancing, ballerina, jazz, modern, all of that. And for quite a few years, she danced at the Oktoberfest in Mount Angel. And again, choreographing, making her costumes, the whole bit. She taught part-time at colleges and universities all over Portland. And she really loved the international folk dancing, and they'd have a dance party at the end of the quarter. So this was the program. And here she is at 51 years old at Portland State. This is their Christmas. They'd have a dance party, invite the public, and they could all participate in these dances that her students had learned during the quarter. So teaching PE was not very lucrative, and Mom, being a brainiac, ended up with a master's in counseling psychology, and then became a certified counselor, and also got involved with the Living Enrichment Center in Wilsonville, where she taught there and also became an ordained minister. Probably the 2 most important weddings that she officiated was, top left was me. That one didn't last, but on the bottom right are Bob and Ginny Caudell, who are on this call. And they were lifelong friends of Mom. I believe Ginny had rented a room for Mom. And then they've just been beautiful friends of Mom's ever since. She did all kinds of stuff at the Living Enrichment Center, a lot of counseling. She also had a dance choir, and they would dance for services. She was very involved in sacred dance, liturgical dance, and she led retreats and all these classes. And her her business she called Joy of Life. Well, that wasn't enough. So she had a degree in counseling and ended up becoming a mental health volunteer for the Red Cross. She was sent to Guam after, I believe, a hurricane, and she was at ground zero. And after the Twin Towers bombing, and that was one of the proudest times of her life. And this is her hard hat, and it's signed by various people that she interacted with there at ground zero. In New York City. But that wasn't enough either. So she ended up competing for Miss Oregon Senior and won, and rode in the Rose Parade on Ghost, and just elicited a lot of smiles from folks. So you all know she was an adventurer. She loved river rafting. She loved exploring. Bottom right, that's her in the Great Pyramids in Egypt. That's on the left. She's on my horse in Central Oregon. But the most important thing, especially near the end of her life, was her kids. She spent all this time being a professional, but as that faded away, she spent more and more time being with her kids. And she would come out to Bend for about 15 years every December to help me pick out a German Christmas tree and light it. And she and I went to Germany at Christmas, and it was just incredible to be there at Christmas. And Hazel took her cross-country skiing there in Central Oregon. And top left is actually me and Mom on a river rafting trip in Guatemala. So definitely the last few years of her life, being a mom became the most important thing to her. And that is what she lived for, was to just be a mom. And her eyes would light up when Hazel or I would walk through the door.
Thank you, Ellen. That was wonderful. So fun to see those pictures and to know more about her. Thank you. I want to now read a short part of our Ananda Astral Ascension ceremony. We do these memorials, these ceremonies, usually within a very short time, within 3 days of somebody's passing. And it's a very sacred time as that loved one makes the transition from this world to the next. Many of the people here online tonight have heard these words many times. And then after that, we'll have very brief, just pause and meditation. And then we'll have an opportunity for people, if they would like to share a little bit about Val, if they'd like, which means that you'll be able to, you can unmute yourself and share it. It's a little tricky with this many people, but we'll be able to do it some way. So first, let me read this for you. Dear friend, Val, you who have gone before us have entered a realm which our souls remember, a place of freedom, light, and laughter. Take with you on your journey our blessings and our love. We shall miss you. Our desire is not to hold you back, but only to tell you, friend, we are yours. Our love and support are ever yours, and our prayers for your highest happiness. We shall meet again. Once more we shall laugh together, rejoice together, and share in the joy of seeking him. Claim your soul's freedom. Bless all who have ever harmed you or ever wished you harm. Give them your love. and your prayer for their freedom in God. Friend, cast from your heart all outward attachments. Realize that earthly goals, however shining, are but dreams. God is the only reality. Burn your earthly desires in the fire of wisdom. Burn your earthly limitations in the blaze of inner freedom. Burn earthly disappointments in the flames of spreading peace. Burn earthly joys in the bonfire of divine bliss. See your physical form as a discarded garment. Clothed you now are in garments of radiant light. O free soul, see your past actions as scenes in a vast unfolding tapestry. Feast not your gaze wistfully on episodes already finished, but look ahead. New adventures await you, fresh, joyous victories as you advance toward perfect freedom. And what of us, friend, who love you and would be remembered by you? Behold us as threads of light in the tapestry of your life. Threads which, through the magnet of soul friendship, will appear ever and again, woven with increasing beauty as our hearts expand together in God's love. Divine Mother, receive this thy child. Purify her in thy perfect light and love. Grant her eternal freedom in thee. Om. Amen. Let's take just a moment now together as friends united with Val. Visualize her float in those robes of light, free from the weight and the burden of the earthly body, rejoicing in that land of light, a heart filled with love and gratitude. Focus your attention at the spiritual eye, opening your heart, drawing the love up to that point, and sending it to Val. All our love, our gratitude, our friendship. Om, peace, amen. And now, if you would like to share a little bit, of course, we need to, by necessity, we need to make it brief. I have 34 people online right now with us. And so I don't want to limit it to a number of people who can share, but we do need to limit our time. The way, I think the best way maybe to do this is to put up your hand. Hanuman has done this. If you're familiar with Zoom, there's a way down at the bottom where you can look under reactions, and there's a little hand. And when you do that, it shows up on your screen, because I'll have to scroll through some here. If you don't have your video on, you'll have to turn on your video in order for me to see that signal. Okay. And you can unmute yourself. So, and then mute yourself back again after you're done speaking. All right, we'll see how this goes. Hanuman, I invite you to be first. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Lorna. And thank you, Ellen, for sharing the life of our dear sister Val. And even before Val came to Ananda House, she was an integral part of the Ananda community. She would, when we would have community get-togethers, I remember asking her if she would share with doing some of the dancing and getting other people to dance, because dance is such a freeing way of connecting with people. And she always did. And she was always so graceful in her abilities. She also gave a lot of love to a lot of different people. You know, her counseling didn't end with the formal counseling. She was seen by other folks and confidentially, and she was well loved. When she did come to Ananda House, I think that it was difficult for her. But one of the sayings that she always had was, you know, you'd ask her, well, how are you doing today, Val? And she'd say, well, it's not raining bombs. And she was talking about real bombs. So, you know, here was somebody who lived through World War II and through very difficult times. And so she had a perspective that none of us, I believe, had. And she was a tough cookie. And her doctor told her that she needed to go out and walk daily, and how far she had to go. And until she just couldn't walk anymore, she would walk every day down to the Lane of the Masters and back. She'd do that 3 times, as far as I know, maybe more. But she would also ask, well, have I done 3? And when she had done 3, then she says, I'm done. Okay, and she would go in. She just had a way of just fulfilling whatever obligation she felt that she had. When we first came to Ananda in Oregon, she was very kind, and she took Maury and I out on her kayak. She had a sailing kayak. And she told me that in Germany, you would take the sailing kayak and it would actually collapse. And you would take it by train and then just sail down the river to wherever you started at the end. And it sounded just wonderful. Just would have been a wonderful thing to do. Anyway, she was a tough nut, and she was always very gracious, and she wanted to share with people. Just one of those people that you don't forget and that you learn a lot from. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Hanuman. Premdas, go ahead.
Thanks, Lorna. Yeah, I thought I would just share one quick story about my time with Val. this goes back about 10 or 11 years. And we had a date to go kayaking. Now, she was in her 80s, 82, 83, something like that. So when I got a call from her that she wasn't going to be able to make it, I figured, she just didn't feel up to it. She was headed over to Idaho to help fight forest fires. That's why she couldn't make that kayaking date. There was only one Val Hammond. Bless you, Val. Thanks.
Thank Marjorie.
I had the pleasure of knowing Val during two eras of her life. The first one was when she was a minister at LEC. I was there in 1991 and 92. And I basically only knew her as the dancing minister. You'd see her float across the dais to demonstrate what a class was going to be about. And I didn't really know her, but then I got to take a class from her on world religions. She was actually more than just a counselor and dance teacher, but very much engaged in helping us fall in love with the essence of all the religions. And I will always remember her for that. And I have a paper that I did for that class that she graded and commented on. So now that's my souvenir. It was almost 30 years later when I showed up at Ananda into the community, and she introduced herself, and I didn't even realize who it was for several weeks until it finally dawned on me. Oh, this is Val. The German accent finally, I think, got to me. But it was just so lovely to be reconnected with her just as a guru Bhai, and get to know her a little bit as a friend and a treasured part of the community. So I am very grateful for having experienced Val, and all that I've heard about her just impresses me more and more. So what a wonderful woman. Thanks.
Thank you, Marjorie. Kathleen, did you have something to share?
Well, to follow that, I met her at LEC as a ministry student, and in her world religions class, she was tough, wasn't she? She was tough. And the paper that I had to write was we had to take an element from each of the world religions and create our own church. Did you?
Wow.
And that really integrated world religions for me. When I became a minister and had my own Celtic ministry, she always came to dance at my Celtic ceremonies. She was always the angel flying by. She never hesitated. She was always there. But what I'm holding, the last time I saw her was when she was packing up at your community, ready to move to Dayton, is it? To Dayton. And I was so touched that she called me and she wanted to give me something. She gave me 3 of her clerical stoles. And 2 of them have been gifted to ministers through my ministry. And I have 1 left, and I'm gonna keep this for myself. It's gonna be for me. And I remember this is almost 5 years ago, I think. And I remember tearfully, she said, I think I have 1 more summer. And I lost track of her. I moved away, and Nancy Garrett Wicker, thank you so much. I had kind of assumed she passed back there. And so there was I felt joy, Nancy, when you let me know that she was making her transition, that I could be connected with her then. So I celebrate her. I called her the dancing angel. Ellen, you read my little message to her. So blessings, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this tonight.
Of course. Thank you, Kathleen. I have a vision as Hanuman was talking about Val going for her walks according to doctor's orders. I live here at the community, and when I moved in, Val was just a few doors away from me, and I could see her path from her door to the mailbox where she would go pick up her mail every day, and she would skip out to the mailbox and then skip back. Sometimes she would kind of jog, but a lot of times she would skip all the way and skip back to get her exercise in. And she'd ask me to come over for treats and sit on her back deck. And she always had some kind of cake or cookie thing that she bought down at New Seasons to share. She was always sharing treats. Anyone else who has something they'd like to say or share? Please, Jane. You're still muted.
Yeah, okay.
There you
Thank
go.
Okay. I feel really lucky, really lucky. I got to know and help care for Val. And one day she said a prayer in German and I asked her to repeat it and I recorded it. It's just one line and she paraphrased it. She said, "Dear God, teach me to love so I can be with you in heaven." So I have that recording and I hope you can hear it. Whoops, that's not it.
Lieber Gott, mach mich fromm, dass ich in den Himmel komme. Amen.
And then one more time.
Lieber Gott, mach mich fromm, dass ich in den Himmel komme. Amen.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. So she was pretty neat. First thing that she said to me when I first met her was that she was going to a doctor's appointment the next day. She wanted 2 cookies, 2 eggs, 2 pieces of toast, and no butter on them, but she was going to be prepared for anything. She was going to have this whole thing of provisions, and she's just such a lovely soul. And I just connected right in with her because of my my own grandparents, and it was just a pleasure to know her. So thank you, Ellen. Thanks for sharing all about her.
Thank you, Jane. Robert. Can you, there you go.
Yeah. A lovely soul. That really sums it up. I'm forever grateful to Val for the role that she played in my meeting and ultimately marrying my wife Jenny, who's here with me now, and that happened back in the mid 1990s. And Jenny lived in Val's house for a couple of years, and so Val played a role in during those years when we were becoming acquainted, courting. Val was instrumental in making sure that Jenny didn't run off to California or somewhere. Kept her and helped to keep her in Portland. So, in addition to that, Val ended up being the presiding pastor and performing the wedding ceremony for us at our wedding in 1999. So here we are, and we both love Val very much. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Am I missing anybody? Down there, Stephen, please. Unmute yourself here first. Can you hit the there you go.
And I'll make sure we don't get feedback here. Yeah, I met Val years and years ago over at the Living Enrichment Center. It's the first time I'd met Val. And me and my wife we attended the Living Enrichment Center for a while, but we became friends with Val, and probably nobody knows who we are or anything, and that's okay. But we would actually sometimes have dinner over at Val's house on Hamilton. And then when she moved to the Ananda community, the apartments over there. We would occasionally visit her over there too, and take her to new seasons when she got to the point where she couldn't drive. We'd take her over shopping every once in a while at new seasons and things. But we had a great time together. I was a religion major in college and stuff, so we enjoyed talking about spiritual ideas, and I have a Christian Science and Unity background on top of going to Lewis and Clark, so where I was taking my religion courses. But anyway, we always had good conversations about God and the universe and everything, and it was just a real delight. But it was really neat to see someone with so much vitality, as long as she could run the vitality. I mean, having that full bot kayak, we have one too, except hers was being used, mine's still folded up. And so just to see all that vitality and that expression of life and the expression of compassion and that heart, she had the biggest heart, and we were enriched by her life, and we just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you for sharing. John, there you are. I didn't see you before. All right, go ahead. Whoa.
Let's see.
All right.
Hang on. Can you hear me through this one?
Yes.
Okay, let's try that. So Val really loved hanging out in the garden. That was one of her favorite things. And I was lucky enough to get to go for walks with her, and often just sit for long stretches of time in the garden and just enjoying the beauty of the colors. She couldn't see details, but she still was happy to just enjoy the colors, the feel of the breeze. And yeah, that was it was really sweet to spend time together with her like that. Really peaceful. There was just such a sweet vibration to spend time with her in the garden together. And at night, going to say goodnight to her at the end of the day. And at one point, you know, she wanted to give me a little present. She offered me some chocolate kisses, and I said, "Well, thanks, Val, but I'm trying to cut back on chocolate." And you know, she was a little disappointed. And so the next evening when I came back, I said, "You know, Val, I thought about it, and I'm not eating chocolate, but maybe I thought of something else maybe that you could give me." And she had a moment of like hesitation, like, "Oh, what's he going to ask for?" And I said, "Could you give me a smile?" And she just lit right up and gave me this wonderful smile. And after that, every evening when I said goodnight, I would say, "Can I have a smile tonight?" And she just has such a sweet, sweet smile. She would give me this wonderful smile. And, you know, we would say Gute Nacht and Süße Träume, and, you know, these sweet little German things to say goodnight and sweet dreams. And it was really precious. Yeah. And yeah, and in the final days, you know, sometimes she was more clear, sometimes she was less clear. And there was a moment when you know, she wasn't communicating very much, but I held her hand and made a little eye contact and said, "Can I have a smile, Val?" And she immediately gave me this wonderful smile. And it was such a touching thing to have that little connection before she went. So yeah, just really feel honored that I got to spend the time together that we had. It's really, really wonderful. So thanks, Val.
Thank you, John.
I wanted to share something before we lose this connection here.
Certainly.
And that is Scott Lichtenstein on? Was on.
I haven't seen him.
So
right now.
He's listed.
He's listed, yeah. Well, I just wanted to say I had the the opportunity to see him with Val at the end. It was her last lucid moment, and they were in together for over an hour and a half, listening to chants together, Ananda chants, and it was just such a heartwarming thing to see. They had a very strong connection, and it was really so good that Ellen and Scott and a lot of people that she really did care for were able to see her at the end. That in particular was just so touching to me. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that Val wanted to go on her last fling to Italy, and so I was the one that went with her and cared for her the whole time for a couple weeks. It was quite an interesting journey, I guess you can say. So she was thrilled about that. So kind of the last big deal, you know, before she knew she wasn't going to be able to do that anymore. But she walked all over the place. I mean, we walked for miles and miles and miles. It was incredible. So she still had those dancing legs. So, just wanted to mention that. So.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, good to be here.
Is there anyone else before we close here this evening? I'm missing you. No? Okay. I do have, yeah, Ellen.
I just wanted to say one last thing, and that was to thank Ananda House. Ananda House provided Mom with the love and security, and I believe with all my heart, and so does my sister, that the energy at Ananda House allowed Mom to finally just relax, slow down, feel loved, feel safe, and really let her light shine. And I just can't say enough about the staff at Ananda House and the residents. I've seen Mom there for, I don't know, 3-4 years now, I don't remember. And they become my family. And they have just been amazing. And I want to thank you for everything that you did for Mom.
Thank you, Ellen. Yes, I agree. We can all feel it when we're there. It's a wonderful place. I have one more song from the Ananda Choir. This one is one where David Eby put together, compiled it from the different singers after COVID. This is called I Live Without Fear. Beautiful one by Swami Kriyananda. And I'm going to share that with you now. Just a minute.
Though green summer fade and winter draw near, my Lord, in your presence I live without fear. Through tempest, through snows, through turbulent tide, the touch of your hand is my strength and my guide. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. I ask
Thank you to everybody for coming and joining us like this. Thank you for being the friends and loved ones that I know you were to Val. And appreciate all of your sharing. Appreciate all the richness of her life is so obvious. And this is just a small representation of all the lives that she's touched. We are here on behalf of all of the people that she blessed and took under her wing, all of those she taught, all of those she smiled with, all of those she shared treats with, all of those people across the planet probably that she had an impact on. And we are so grateful that we knew her. Thank you, Ellen, for sharing. Thank you, everybody. This is recorded. So if you know of people who might want to see it, let me know. I'll make it available. So thank you all. Good night. And in Ananda fashion, what we do is we send ohms to those we love and we're praying for. It doesn't work very well to be unmuted and try to make it all come together, but we can do it individually where we are. So with your heart open, with your energy focused up here at the point between the eyebrows, rub your hands together and feel the energy flowing through you, the love and the light. And then we will chant together 3 times, sending ohms to Val, to her soul, and to all who loved her. Om. 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 Peace. Amen. Thanks again. Good night. God bless.